Hey everyone, welcome back. I know it seems like it's pretty early for Christmas DIYs, but it's never too early to get a jump start on everything when they are starting to put all of the supplies out in the stores. So I've put together my top 12 Dollar Tree Christmas DIYs from last year so you can get all of your supplies together and start DIYing. If you're new here and you like home decor and DIYs on a budget, stick around by hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell for notifications so you never miss out on a new video. Let's get started. So for the Nutcracker, I started off with the body. To make the body, I'm going to use 2 poster boards, and I just overlapped both of those poster boards a little bit, and then I'm going to use some hot glue to secure them together. Next, I'm going to take these wooden round circles from Dollar Tree, and I just cut the hangers off of them. Then I'm going to place that at the top of the edge of one of the pieces of cardboard, and then I'm going to use my hot glue, and I'm going to wrap that cardboard around the edge of the circle and hot glue it down so that way it's secure. So I did that on one end, and then I took another wooden circle and did the same thing on the other end. So you just want to roll it as you are applying the hot glue so that way it is easier to put on the circle. Now you can see that there is a gap in the middle there where the poster boards don't meet completely. So what I did to cover that up is I took another piece of poster board and I just cut that basically halfway. I folded it over and used my scissors to cut along that crease. And then I'm going to take one of the halves and overlap it with the other one like I did the first 2 pieces of poster board. But I just want to make sure that it's the same length as my tube that I am creating. So I hot glued those together, and then I'm going to take one of the sides and I'm going to go ahead and hot glue that down to the wooden circles and the poster board that is already on the wooden circles. So I just place that on there, and then you can see here it's easier to kind of flip it over, and I'll do that here in a second, and then kind of apply pressure so that way that part stays down. And then for the second half of it, I did it the same way as the first half. I just applied the hot glue along the edge of the poster board and rolled that wooden circle onto that hot glue to keep it on that side. And I did the same thing with the bottom side. And you can see I have a little poster board sticking out above the circle. I just went along that seam and I used my scissors to cut that to make it even. And then I just hot glued that long seam at between the poster board. The body of the Nutcracker is done. It's basically just a tube. So then I moved on to the legs, and I actually did something different than what you're seeing here, but they didn't support the body of the Nutcracker. So I had to think of something different, and actually my mom gave me this idea. I'm just using poster board that I rolled together and hot glued, kind of like what I did with the body, but I didn't have the wood base at the bottom and the top. And then I did hot glue them once they were rolled to a wooden base, and then the wooden base was glued to an upside down pizza pan from Dollar Tree. That way it just made it a little bit more sturdy. And then I stuffed the legs with a bag of rocks, just one bag of rocks split between the 2 legs. And then I also stuffed them with 2 leftover pool noodles that I had. Then I hot glued the body on top of the legs. I used a lot of hot glue, and this worked out perfectly. It is so sturdy now, and it's not going anywhere. You'll see the unsturdy legs later on in the video when I show you how I did the arms. But now I'm going to move on to the feet or the boots of the Nutcracker, and for that I used a brand new Plunger from Dollar Tree. This was one that I had left over from the projects because I always use the wooden sticks from them, but I don't actually use the plunger part. So I had this left over and I just cut it in half with a box cutter, and I attached one half to one of the legs with some hot glue. It works perfectly. It just takes a minute for the hot glue to hold and set. So you just want to add the hot glue and then kind of hold it there for a couple minutes to make sure that the rubber doesn't pull away from the poster board. But once it's set, it is good to go. All right, so for the arms of the Nutcracker, I'm going to use this pool noodle that I just cut in half. And then for the hands, I'm going to use 2 of these clear ornaments from Dollar Tree. I just took the tops off, and then I inserted the top of the ornament through the hole of the pool noodle, and that stays perfectly. You don't have to hot glue it or glue it at all if you don't want to. And then for the shoulders of the Nutcracker, I took these 2 gift boxes and I just put the lids on the bottom of the gift boxes, and then I hot glued the pool noodle inside of the gift boxes. And then I took the arms and I just hot glued them onto the sides of the Nutcracker. I did at the top where the gift box met the Nutcracker's body, and then I also did the bottom of the pool noodle to the body. And you can see my skinny little legs there. Those were the ones I made before I changed it up. So now I am going to paint the Nutcracker, which is the fun part. For the face, I'm using a color called Cool Bisque by Folk Art. I just painted the face on. I didn't paint the back of the head because I'm going to cover that up. I just painted the front, and then I painted the hands with that same color. For the jacket and the arms of the Nutcracker, I used the color Imperial. It's a nice deep red color by Folk Art, and I just painted the body, and then I painted the arms or the pool noodles of the Nutcracker with this. I did need 2 coats of paint for the face and for the body and the arms to make sure I covered everything up. And then for half of the legs, I used this vintage green Folk Art chalk paint. And again, I needed 2 coats of paint for this. I didn't worry about my lines where the colors met because I'm going to be covering that up, so the lines don't have to be perfectly even. You just want to try to get a little bit even so you know where to cover up your mistakes are at later on. And then for the boots, or the other half of the legs and the base, I used black Folk Art chalk paint, and I only had to do 1 coat of this, so I don't know why, but this black paint covered really well. And then I did the shoulders of the Nutcracker. I used a little smaller brush to make sure that I didn't get any on the red. And then for the hair of the Nutcracker, I used these dusters from Dollar Tree. I used 6 of them. I used 2 on the sides of the head, and then on the back of the head, I used 1 at the bottom, a full one, and then I cut 1 in half, and then I layered it at the top and put another full one, and then I put the other half one on the next to that one. I just hot glued all of that on. Now for the hat, you can definitely paint this on with a black paint, but I chose to use this fleece scarf from Dollar Tree. It fits around the head perfectly. It's the right height, so it works great. I just wrapped it around, hot glued it, cut part of 1 half, and then for the other half, I used a little hot glue, and then I folded it in on itself. So that way I made a nice seam on the back, and I didn't have a cut seam there. And then I just finished hot gluing it off. Next, I needed a nose for my Nutcracker, and I searched high and low in my craft room to find something. This little foam block dice is from Dollar Tree, so I just used that. I cut it down with a little box cutter, and then I just hot glued it on to the middle of my face, and I used some more of that face paint to go ahead and paint it. You could use a Jenga block or something else you could find at Dollar Tree to make a nose, but this actually worked out perfectly. Now for the face, You can definitely paint it on. That's up to you, but I decided to go ahead and use my Cricut and cut out the face for my Nutcracker. I got all of the vinyl from Dollar Tree. I used black, white, and pink for the face, and I actually have a cut file in the description box listed down below so you can cut out this same exact face. Now I am applying the face just like stickers. So I did not use transfer tape to apply this because I didn't want to peel off any of the paint. I just tore each one off and placed it on. And then also for the mustache, I have the big mustache, and then for the eyebrows, I used a smaller version of that mustache and cut it in half and placed that for the eyebrows because there was just nothing for free on Cricut Design Space for the eyebrows. So this worked out perfectly, I think, though. And then I did add a couple dots for rosy cheeks. And I think the face turned out really good. I think it would have turned out really good if I painted it also, but I just went this way instead. And then for his beard, I used another one of those dusters and hot glued it below the mouth. Now it's time to add some bling to this Nutcracker. So I took some of this gold glitter ribbon from Dollar Tree and I made an X in the middle of his hat. I just hot glued one piece of the ribbon diagonal, and then I hot glued another piece of the ribbon the opposite diagonal and cut the excess ribbon at the top there. And then for his jacket, I cut some more of this gold glitter ribbon. I just cut 6 equal pieces and then I hot glued it kind of underneath his beard a little bit, and then coming out, I just spaced them as evenly as I could. And I just did 3 on each side and then 3 on the other side of his beard. And you can see there on his shoulders, I did add some beaded ribbon from Dollar Tree as well. It was just one spool of beaded ribbon. I wrapped it around the lids of the gift boxes and hot glued it down. It was really easy, but I must have lost that footage because I can't find it anywhere. But it's pretty simple. You just hot glue it on there. And then for his belt, I picked up some more of this kind of mesh glitter ribbon from Dollar Tree, and I just placed it around, and then you can't really hot glue it because of the mesh. So I put it through his arms and then I tied it in a little bow, and then I hot glued that bow in the back to kind of secure it, but then it kind of gave me a little bit of wiggle room so that way I could adjust it if I needed to in the front and it wasn't all hot glued down. And then lastly, I put some of that gold glitter ribbon at the bottom of his legs where the green met the black. And I love how this Nutcracker turned out. He is so cool. I am 5'4". He stands probably about an inch above me, so he's probably about 5'5". And he looks pretty awesome. I have the list down below in the description box of the breakdown of everything I used and how much it cost. So if you want to make your own, he was definitely less than $40 to make. For this DIY, I wanted to make a Christmas village that was all one unit that I could pick up and move to different places if I wanted to, and it was all still intact together and the houses didn't fall apart. So to do that, I made a platform with 3 of these wooden pieces from Dollar Tree that I hot glued together long ways. You could use wood glue instead, but then I turned it over on the back and reinforced them with my staple gun along the seam. Next, I picked up 3 of these light up little houses from Dollar Tree. I picked up a church, a little cafe, and a little house, and they light up with a switch on the bottom. So I wanted these, to be easily accessible so that way I could turn them on and off. So I have this hook and loop adhesive tape that I got off of Amazon a long time ago, but you can find something like this at Dollar Tree. I cut 3 small strips and I just undid the adhesive part and placed them onto the backs or the bottoms of the 3 houses, and then I placed them onto my platform, just removing the strip on the bottom of each one of them so that way they would stay. So I just positioned them the way I liked them, and you can make this platform as big as you'd like. You can use a scrap piece of wood. You can get a bunch of different houses from Dollar Tree and make a huge display. Now, I did run into a little bit of problem with the hook and loop adhesives. The self-adhesive was not sticky enough. So what I did was I took the one piece off and I just used a little bit of hot glue underneath that piece that is supposed to stay stuck to the piece of wood. And I did that for all 3 of the houses so that way that piece won't come off with the houses, and it'll make sure that it has good adhesion and sticks to the wood. And then I just placed the houses back on, and you can see I just lifted them up and I was able to turn each one of the houses on to make them light up. So it just kind of takes a little effort just to pull it off there a little bit to get it away from the hook or loop or whatever part is on the base. And then that way you have a little village. Now you could paint your wood and you can leave the houses the color that they come, but I decided to use a can of white spray paint and some of this faux snow. What I did was spray paint the whole thing and then throw some of the faux snow on there so that way it looked like it was like a snowy little village. Then I took these 3 trees from Dollar Tree and just hot glued them to the base. You can add whatever you'd like to this. It's definitely customizable. I love how this turned out. It's so pretty and classic.
Oh, da, 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 da. Making our Christmas memories. I've been working so much lately, I can barely find the time to sleep. Yeah, I spend my time running around, keeping people pleased. But this is my favorite holiday. It's a chance to start over new.
This DIY, I wanted to make a wreath, so I'm using one of the green foam wreath forms from Dollar Tree, and I had 2 bags of these wood pieces from Dollar Tree, so I'm going to use those. Now, I need to cover up the back of the wreath. So I had this fluffy, fuzzy scarf from Dollar Tree from last year. So I took it and I just hot glued it around the back of the wreath and just made sure that I glued it in place. And then when I flipped it over, the front was still showing a little bit, but I just kind of wrapped it over in some places and made sure it was all hot glued down because I'm going to be covering up the green with most of those wood pieces. So once I got all of that hot glued down, I'm just going to go ahead and take those wood rounds and use hot glue to just secure those to the wreath form. And like I said, I'm basically just trying to cover up the green that is showing. So I had 2 bags of these wood pieces, like I said. So I worked my way around and staggered them to make sure I tried to cover up the green as much as I could. It probably would have been a little bit better if I could have had another bag of these, but I didn't, and I didn't want to run back out to the store. So I was working with what I got. But just bear with me. It looks kind of crazy right now, but it will all come together in the end. It looks a little sporadic, but I left an opening there in the middle because I didn't have enough wood pieces to cover up, but I'm going to cover that up later on. So to fill in the little gaps that you can still see through the wood pieces, I had a couple bags of these little pine cones from Dollar Tree, and these worked perfectly to fill in the gaps. I just hot glued them in and I covered the rest of the whole wreath with these pine cones, and it worked perfectly. It was just what this wreath needed to kind of fill in and make it look that winter wondery land look that it has to it, this natural look. So I went ahead and, like I said, I used all of the pine cones and I filled in all of the gaps where I needed to, and then what I did was I needed to cover up that middle piece there. that I didn't have any wood for. So I had this ribbon from Walmart. You can use whatever wide ribbon that you have. This was just from last year, and I just made a hanger with that. And then I used the other bag of pine cones that I had to kind of fill in the gaps next to the ribbon. And then with the rest of the ribbon, I made a bow and placed it on top there, so you can't even notice the gap anymore. I love how this natural winter wonderland wreath turned out. It's so pretty. You could add greenery or maybe some pops of color with some red berries and kind of just make it your own and do whatever you would like. But it's a jumping off point, and I think it's really pretty for Christmas and winter.
Oh, please, but this is my favorite holiday. It's a chance to start over new. 'Cause I missed you, so I'm letting go of everything but you. These are the good times with you. Baby, this year it's just gonna...
For this DIY, I'm going to use 2 of these 3D wreath forms from Dollar Tree. They come in 2 different sizes that I've seen. There's a bigger one, and then there is a smaller one. So I'm going to use one of each of both of those, and I'm just going to open them up and make the sapphire out of each one of them. They come with this little silver disc for the top and the bottom of them to help keep them open. It's pliable. You just wrap it around the wires to keep it open. So once I got that finished, I am going to use this piece of wood. It came from Dollar Tree. You can use any scrap piece of wood that you have as a platform. And then I'm going to take the bigger 3D wreath form, and I'm going to hot glue it on top of that piece of wood. Now that I'm thinking about it, I actually should have used some staples from my staple gun and just kind of stapled around the wire into the wood to help keep it up better. But I used a lot of hot glue and held it there until it was dry. Now I want to attach these 2 pieces together, and I want to make a snowman. So the smaller one is the head and the larger one is the body. So when I was trying to attach them together, it made more sense to take the silver pieces off of the bottom of the smaller ball and the top of the bigger ball where they come together at. And then you can see here where I am removing the rings from that piece on the smaller ball, and that way I can put those rings onto the bigger ball and attach it together, so that way it stands up a little bit better. And then I took some zip ties and I zip tied some of the wires to the bigger ball, so that way everything was more secure. Then I took some white spray paint and I spray painted the whole thing white. Next, you can see that I wrapped everything in fairy lights. These fairy lights came from Amazon. I used 2 packs of them. You can get a lot of them for a really good price, and they're longer than the ones from Dollar Tree, so I only had to use the 2 packs to wrap this whole thing. So I will leave a link to those down below in the description box if you're interested, but the Dollar Tree fairy lights will work too. You'll just need a lot more of them to cover this whole thing because it's pretty big. And then for the hat for my snowman, I just used this hat ornament that I found from Dollar Tree. I hot glued it on the top of his head, and then for his scarf, I used this burlap green ribbon from Dollar Tree that I just wrapped around its neck and tied it, and then used a little hot glue to secure it down, and I cut the ends off. And then where I hot glued it to secure it in the middle there, I used another little piece off of an ornament to hot glue that and cover that up, and I love how this turned out. It's so cute.
I'm running around, keeping people pleased, but this is my favorite holiday. It's a chance to start over new, 'cause I missed you, so I'm letting go of everything but you. These are the good times with you.
For this DIY, I wanted to make some ornament candles. I've seen these all over the place. So I picked up 2 of these regular white bowls. You can use whatever color or pattern you choose from Dollar Tree. And then I picked up a pack of 4 of these clear bowls. I'm gonna paint 2 of the clear bowls with this paprika spray paint, and then the other 2 clear bowls I'm going to paint with this moss color spray paint. And then I'm gonna leave the white ones alone, and I'm not gonna paint those. Now for the wax, I am going to use a red candle and a white candle from Dollar Tree. And then I'm going to melt those candles down. So I just filled up a big pot with about 6 cups of water. So it kind of went maybe a quarter of the way up the candle. And then I brought that to a boil and let those boil until the wax was completely melted. Then I took the wick out of the red candle and use that in my white bowl because I'm going to use the red wax in the white bowl, and I'm going to just place that in the bowl. And then the white wick, I put that in one of the spray painted bowls that I did. And then for the last wick, because I only had 2 wicks to work with, I am going to take some of these birthday candles. Actually, I'm just going to take one of them, and I am going to cut one down, and I'm going to use that as the wick in my last bowl. So I'm just going to melt this with a lighter and then stick it inside my bowl until it adheres to the bowl. If you do it in the wax, it won't work. It just dries, the wax just dries too quickly before you can get it inside the bowl for it to stick. Then I'm gonna go ahead and use some essential oils that I already had. I had this apple pie smell from Walmart that I used in the red wax, and then I had some vanilla that I used in the white wax. And then I went ahead and poured the red wax into the white bowl, and I just split the white wax into each one of the colored bowls. Then I went ahead and I cut my wicks for the white wick and the red wick, so that way they were shorter. And I could have used another red candle to fill the white bowl completely up, but that's okay. Then I put the other bowls on top of my candles, and I'm going to make little tops for them so that they look like ornaments more. So I had this mason jar lid from a jar from Dollar Tree, and I'm not using it. So I went ahead and took that. It fit perfectly, and I painted it with some metallic gold paint. For the 2 colored bowls, I used 2 wooden beads that I got from Dollar Tree and some twine. I tied the twine in the wooden beads to make a little loop, and then I hot glued those on top of those bowls. And then for the last one, when that was all done painted, I just hot glued that on top of the bottom of that top bowl and hot glued some ribbon on the top, and that's it. I love how these turned out. For this next DIY, I'm going to make a bell wreath. So I'm going to use one of these wreath forms from Dollar Tree. And then I have some of the big bells, some of the small bells, and some of the medium-sized bells to cover this wreath in. But first, I am going to wrap this wreath with some of this red velvet ribbon from Dollar Tree. I just hot glued the end to the wreath form and then just wrapped it all the way around. And I do this so that way, if I miss any spots, you'll see the red, and then also the back of the wreath is covered, so that way you don't see that green styrofoam in the back. I just like to have that finished look. So once I got that all wrapped, I just hot glued the end and then cut it off. And then, like I said, I'm gonna cover this all in bells. So I started off with the big bells, and then I just hot glued them all around the top of the wreath. I didn't have any pattern or anything. I just hot glued them where I thought they needed to be, and I knew I had the other smaller bells to fill in some of the gaps. So I wasn't too worried about covering every little inch with the big bells. I just went along and did that all the way around the wreath. And I had 7 packages of the big bells. And then once I got all of those down, I moved on to the medium-sized bells, and I used that to go in the cracks and in between the bigger bells to cover up and fill in those gaps. I had 2 packages of the medium-sized bells to do that with. And then lastly, I took these smaller bells, which I had one package of, and I just filled in the rest of the gaps all around where I thought it needed. Lastly, I made a bow out of some more of that red ribbon and attached it with some hot glue, and that was it. I think this turned out really pretty.
Oh, how I wish for the Christmases of old, where the snow would fall and the air was crisp and cold.
For this DIY, I'm going to use 2 pieces of wood from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to hot glue them together at the ends, and then I flipped it over and reinforced it with some staples on the back. You can use wood glue if you'd like. I just use hot glue for everything. Then I stained the whole piece and let it dry. You can also use, in place of this wood from Dollar Tree, a 1x2 if you have a saw to cut it. I was just at Dollar Tree, so I picked up this wood, easy enough. And then I am going to just measure out every 2 inches across the board and mark it with a pencil. Then I used a 1/16 drill bit and drilled into the wood, not all the way through. I just drilled a hole into each one of those marks I made down the piece of wood. Then I'm gonna take these trees from Dollar Tree. I have 11 of them, and I'm gonna remove the bases because I don't really like the bases of these trees. So I just popped them off. They're easy to pop off. And then I am just gonna place them inside the holes, and that 1/16 drill bit is perfect for this project. The trees do not move once they're in the holes. You don't have to use glue or anything. And this is perfect for a mantle or a table for a centerpiece for Christmas. I love how it turned out. For this DIY, I'm going to use one of these handles that you put the cleaning attachments on. This is a smaller one than the broom handle, and it is also plastic. I'm just going to remove that top piece because I don't need it for this project. And then I'm going to use 7 of these greenery picks from Dollar Tree. They have a lot of nice Christmas greenery picks out right now. So I just found 7 that were all alike. Now I'm going to take my drill, and I have a 3/16 drill bit on it, and I'm just going to drill right through the handle. So I have 2 holes on each side, and then I'm going to take my greenery picks and I am just going to push those through the handle. And you just kind of have to force them a little bit because you want them tight. I didn't use any glue on this, but you could use glue on it if you wanted to, but I just forced them in, and then I tried to make them smaller as I went up. So the first one was set was longer, and then the second set was shorter, and the third set was shorter. And then the last greenery pick, I just placed inside the handle and hot glued it in there. And now you can see here, I am wrapping the handle in some nautical rope from Dollar Tree. I used 3 packs of that, and I just started at the bottom and wrapped till I got to the greenery pick, and then I wrapped up the greenery picks just a little bit, each one, so that way it kind of blended all together. And then I just went all the way to the top and hot glued it at the end and cut the excess off when I was done. Now, so this Christmas tree stands up, I'm going to take one of these wooden boxes from Dollar Tree, and I am going to go ahead and drill a hole in the middle of the bottom of it with a 5/8 drill bit. And then I am going to stain the box and the lid with the same stain I used before. You can use whatever stain you would like, and let that dry. Next, I'm going to use some floral foam from Dollar Tree. I used this block of floral foam that is harder than the soft floral foam that Dollar Tree sells. So I just cut it down to size so that way it fits snugly inside my box. And then once it fit in there, I just cut off the bottom so that way it was even, and I could hot glue my box on top of the lid. And then I just pushed my tree trunk right down in the styrofoam and hot glued it so it would be secure. Then I took these battery operated fairy lights that I got off of Amazon. You can get a pack of 20 of them, I believe around $20. So it's a really good deal. I'll leave a link to them down below in the description box. I just wrapped everything up in this. I started at the top branches and wrapped the branches in the tree trunk. I used 5 packs of these, and I just hot glued the battery packs onto the back of the tree trunk and onto the box so that way I could still access the batteries and the on-off switches. As I was wrapping the tree with the lights, I was fluffing the branches out and realized it looked a little sparse. So I lost some footage here, but the branches that I'm pulling on here, they come in a pack of 6 from Dollar Tree. So I used like 2 or 3 packages of those and shoved those into the branches to fill everything out. And I like how this tree turned out. It's cute. Now to start off making the chimney, I'm going to use 2 of these project display boards. Now if you have a large box already, then this part could be free for you, but I didn't, so I picked these up at Dollar Tree. And what I'm going to do is I am going to use some duct tape and duct tape them at the folds, and then I'm going to flip it around and duct tape the other side together so that way I make myself a box. I duct tape the outside and the inside of these just to make sure that it would hold up well, and you just want to make sure when you get it all duct taped that you kind of just fold it in so that way it stands up straight. And then once I got that done, I am going to make the brick pattern on this. I am using the peel and stick wallpaper from Dollar Tree. I used 14 sheets for this, and you could paint your brick pattern on with red paint and white paint, but I decided to use the peel and stick wallpaper instead. So on the back of the peel and stick wallpaper, it has a line where you just fold and then you peel one little strip off to expose the sticky side, and then you can place that down, and then you can lift up the other edge and smooth it as you go. It's really easy to apply. It's not super sticky though. That's the only issue I had. I made sure that I really rubbed in the seams where the boards folded to make sure that it stayed down really well. After I did that, it did stick okay, but you have to make sure that you really press down hard to make sure that it sticks. And the pattern lines up really nicely, so I just made sure that I lined up the pattern and matched it all the way along, and then I cut off the excess so that way that would match. When I got to the top, I didn't need a full sheet, but I went ahead and used the full sheet and folded that over onto the inside of my chimney so that way the inside of the chimney kind of looked a little bit decorative. When I was doing the corners of this, I just wrapped it around the corner and then I cut along the downside to the corner, and then I just folded it inward, and that worked perfectly. And you can see I had my little cat helper here. She loved playing in the box, so if you have a cat, just know that they're going to be helping you with this project. Now I wanted to put some snow around my chimney, the top of my chimney, so I got 2 of these snow blankets from Dollar Tree. They're pretty thin, and also they have sparkles on them, which will get everywhere, just so you know. But I folded mine so that way the sparkles were on the inside, and I doubled them up. And then you can see here, I just went with my scissors and I just cut around to make it look like snow. It wasn't perfect, and I just made sure that my edges were rounded as I went. And I did one, and then I did another one so that way I could go all the way around the chimney. I didn't measure this out or anything. I just freehanded it, but you could draw it out if you wanted to. And then once I was done, I left it folded over because I wanted it doubled up, like I said, because that fabric is really thin. And then I just draped it over the edge and used a little bit of hot glue along those edges to secure it down. And I just went all the way around. Like I said, 2 of these worked out perfectly to go all the way around the top of the chimney to make it look like snow. All right, that is all there is to it to this DIY chimney. So if you wanted to quit DIYing right here, you could, and you could go to Five Below and pick up one of these 3-foot inflatable Santas that are battery operated for only $10. And you could put a laundry basket from Dollar Tree inside the chimney upside down, and then inflate your Santa on top of that laundry basket sticking out of your chimney, and you have a cute little waving Santa inside a chimney. I think this is adorable, and it would only cost you $35 to make this whole setup, and you wouldn't have to do that much DIYing. But if you want to continue DIYing, or you can't find this Santa Claus, then you can continue by getting yourself a piece of cardboard. You can use a scrap piece of cardboard or a piece of black foam board and cut it out to the size of the chimney. I just traced my chimney on to the top of the box, and I'm just using scissors to cut this out. And then once I cut this out, I'm gonna spray paint mine black because it's not already black, but you know, if you had a piece of foam board that was already black, you wouldn't have to spray paint it. So then once that is all spray painted and cut out, I'm just gonna go ahead and place it snugly inside the top of my chimney, leaving about 3 or 4 inches from the top. And then I hot glued it down into the chimney from the bottom with some hot glue. I just went around the edges and made sure that it was hot glued and it was sturdy and held nicely once that was done. Now for the legs of Santa that's going to be sticking up out of this chimney, I am going to use a pool noodle from Dollar Tree. I am going to just fold that over and cut it in half as best as I can to make sure that they're about the same height. And then I took another pool noodle and I cut about 18 inches off of that pool noodle. And then I'm going to take that pool noodle and cut that completely in half. And those are going to be my 2 pieces that are technically going to be the feet, or the start of the feet for my Santa. So I just hot glued the bottom of that pool noodle to the bottom of the other pool noodle, and then I rolled that piece up there to make it look like a foot. And I used some skewers to kind of hold it in place for me, and I used a little bit of hot glue, but that will not hold it completely. So you'll see here in a minute, I'm going to be using duct tape to hold the whole foot together. I did cut another about 18 inches off of that pool noodle, and I wrapped it around the whole thing so you couldn't see that little spiral on the side there. So it technically looked like a foot. And again, I used some skewers to kind of hold it in place and help me, just so that that way I could wrap this whole thing with the duct tape. And the duct tape really secured that foot together so that that way it wouldn't fall apart. I did the same thing to the other pool noodle to make another foot, and it goes a little bit quicker here because I knew what I was doing. Sometimes I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing and it doesn't always go the quickest the first time, but the second time I know what I'm doing. So I did the other foot, and now I have 2 legs and 2 feet. Now I'm gonna go ahead and cover that duct tape with some of this black felt that came from Dollar Tree. It's just a roll of black felt, and I used a white piece of chalk to trace the bottom of my foot. And I kind of did this in pieces because I wasn't sure how to cover it. So I did the bottom of the foot, and then I hot glued that piece of felt to the bottom there. And then I cut a strip to go around the edge of the foot and hot glued that down, and then around the back hot glued it together. And then for the top, I just took some of the excess fabric that was left over, and then I just placed it on the top of the foot and kind of wrapped it around the leg a little bit and hot glued it in the back. And then I cut around the top of the foot at like an oval, so that way it would be kind of nice and even, and then I hot glued that down to the top of the foot. As I was covering these feet, I was thinking to myself, I know there's an easier way to cover these, but I couldn't figure it out in my head. But now that I'm watching this back and doing these voiceovers, I realize you can definitely just put the foot on top of the piece of felt and gather it up around the leg and tie it off, because you're not going to see that leg in the long run with what I do. But either way works. It's just that other way would be a lot simpler than the way I did it. Anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hot glue my legs, the bottom of my legs, to that bottom piece there that I glued inside the chimney. I am using Gorilla Glue at a very high heat, and I'm just going to hold it there until that Gorilla Glue dries, so that way they stay in place and don't fall over. Now I'm going to take a piece of red poster board and I'm going to fold it in half short ways and cut that in half, and then cut about 3 inches off the top because it's just a little bit too long. And I'm going to take that poster board and I'm going to wrap my legs, my pool noodles, with the poster board just to make them a little bit thicker. I'm not completely wrapping them tight against the pool noodles. I'm leaving a little bit of room so that way it is a little bit thicker, and that way it'll hold the pool noodles up a little bit better. I'm hot gluing that poster board at the bottom to that bottom board, and for some reason this just makes everything a little bit more sturdy and stable when you glue that poster board down there. So that's what I did, and because it's red I don't have to paint it. And then next I took these duster packs from Dollar Tree, and 2 of the dusters come in each pack. So what I did was I took the dusters and I pulled them apart. When you pull them apart, you want to be very gentle so that way they don't break. If they do break, it's not, it's not too bad because you can kind of piece them together, but you want to try to get whole pieces out of them. And then I hot glued those around the bottoms of the legs so that way it looked like Santa's fur. And then I'm going to take another poster board and I'm going to fold it in half long ways, which is opposite of what I did with the legs. And then I'm just going to cut that in half, and then I'm going to place a piece on one side of the legs in a circular pattern, and then on the other side. And then I hot glued those sides together to meet, so that way it looks like Santa's coat is coming out of the chimney. And then I took the rest of the dusters that I had, pulled those apart, and hot glued those all around the bottom of the coat. I used 4 packs of these dusters, so I used 8 dusters all together. And that is it for this DIY Santa getting stuck in the chimney. I think he turned out equally as adorable as the last one. For this Santa and this chimney, it cost around $36.58, so it was about $1.58 more than the other one, but it's all on how much you want to DIY and what supplies you can find. I'll leave a list of those supplies down below in the description box for you guys if you are interested. And that is it for this DIY. I'm going to use 2 of these candy canes that you put in your yard that I got from Dollar Tree, but instead of putting them in my yard, I'm going to make a cute little candy cane ladder out of them. For the rungs on the ladder, I'm going to use these wooden dowels from Dollar Tree, and I just used 6 of them, and then I'm going to paint them with some of this red chalk paint and then let them dry. Once the wooden dowels were all painted and dried, I got back out my candy canes, and now I'm just going to place them side by side from each other, and then I'm going to take one of the wooden dowels and I'm going to rest that on one of the candy canes with the curved part pointed up, and I'm going to hot glue that down to that candy cane, and then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side of the wooden dowel on the other candy cane with the curved parts of the candy cane facing upward, and then I'm going to do that all the way down for the other 5 rungs of the ladder. And you just want to make sure that your candy canes are even in height, so that way when you stand up your ladder, it's all even. I just used hot glue to secure everything down. The first rung was the hardest. Once that was secured with the hot glue, it was easy to put the other rungs on. Now, as far as for the spacing between the rungs on the ladder, I didn't use a measuring tape or anything. I just used my fingers and kind of estimated how far apart they would be, but you can definitely measure if you'd like. Now, to secure the rungs better onto the candy canes, I'm going to go ahead and use some red twine, which I just got from Dollar Tree. And then on the back of the ladder, I'm just going to hot glue that piece down. And then I just wrapped it around and crisscrossed it in between the rungs. And I did that for all of the rungs on each side. And that's just going to make sure that this doesn't move on you and the hot glue doesn't come up, because with just the hot glue, it's not as secure as it could be. So this will make it a lot more secure. Once the rungs were all wrapped with the twine, the ladder was finished. It turned out so cute, and there's multiple uses for this ladder. You can use it in your decor for Christmas and set it up, or if your kids are into the elf on the shelf, it works out perfectly to put your elf on there and surprise the kids in the morning. I paired it with a couple elves from Dollar Tree. It looks super cute this way. You could also use this as a kitchen towel holder, or even a stocking holder would work for this as well if you don't have a fireplace. So there's many different options, and this is super cute for Christmas. For this DIY, I'm going to use one of the white pieces of foam board from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to use a pencil and trace out a little squiggly design. I'm going to be making a melted snowman, so this is going to be the base for my melted snowman, so it doesn't have to be a perfect circle or perfect edges. And then once I get that traced out, I'm going to use a little box cutter from Dollar Tree and just cut the design out. For the head of my melting snowman, I'm going to use this 3D wreath form from Dollar Tree. I'm going to open it up, and because it didn't come with the little silver pieces to hold this open, I'm going to take the long metal pieces that stick out into the sphere, and I'm just going to bend them upwards so that way my shape holds itself, since I don't have those pieces. But if you have those pieces, you can use those to keep this in place. Then I'm going to put a big dollop of hot glue in the place where I want my head to be, and then I'm going to hold my shape there so that way it stays in place. Put a little more hot glue on the top just to keep it in place. Then I did paint this white, just the metal 3D wreath form, because I'm going to use this snow blanket from Dollar Tree, and it is a little bit see-through, as you can tell here, but I'm just going to take that out of the package, and I'm going to place it over everything. And then once I get it kind of in place, I'm going to flip the whole piece over, and I'm going to hot glue the edges of the snow blanket to the edges of the foam board. I did this all the way around the foam board. I did leave a little bit opening in the back of the head so that way I could insert some lights later on, and I'll show you that later on in this video. But I did keep it loose. I didn't pull it tight so that way the fabric was loose fitting on the top of the piece, and then I cut the excess fabric on the bottom. Now I'm going to add some lights around the melted part of the snowman. So I just used these battery operated colored lights from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to flip the whole piece over again and do this on the opposite side of where the melted snowman's head is going to be. So I just took my little box cutter and I cut an X for me to place the light through that to come up through the front of the piece, and I did that all the way around until the lights ran out. Once the lights were pushed through to the front side of the board, I took the battery pack and I hot glued it to the bottom of the board, making sure I could still access the batteries so that way I could change them later on. And then I flipped the board over and I pushed the lights through the fabric, which is really easy to do because it's thin fabric. Now I'm going to dress up my snowman with some buttons. I just got these buttons from Dollar Tree. I picked out 3 of them that were alike, and I hot glued them to the bottom of the board so that way it looked like they already melted off the snowman. Now for the snowman's face, I'm going to use some of these black wooden beads. You can use some of the buttons instead. I just had these wooden beads from Dollar Tree and I thought they kind of looked like pieces of coal and they were perfect for the snowman's face. So I used a couple for the eyes and I just used hot glue to secure them down in place on top of that fabric. And then for the mouth, I used 6 pieces and I just started in the middle and then worked my way outward on each side to make a cute little smile for the snowman. For my snowman's nose, I am going to use this battery operated LED necklace from Dollar Tree. The bulbs come with different colors and it flashes in 2 different modes, and then it has a steady state as well. So I'm going to leave it in the steady state and I'm just going to take one of the yellow bulbs since it's closest to orange, and I'm going to feed that through the back of the snowman's head where I left that opening, and then I'm just going to go ahead and push that through the fabric and use a little hot glue to secure that onto that piece of metal that is the head. And then I'm going to go ahead and leave the on-off switch sticking out of the back side of the snowman's head, and then I'm just going to glue that fabric in place to keep everything nice and snug. And then the head lights up and the body lights up, and he turned out super cute. This is perfect. You can put it on a centerpiece as a centerpiece on your table. You can make this with your kids, leave it under your Christmas tree. It's just a cute piece of Christmas and winter decor for this time of year. For this next DIY, I'm going to use 5 of these candy canes from Dollar Tree, and you can see these are red and white compared to the ones I used for the ladder are red, green, and white. So you can use whatever colors you want. I'm going to use these ones, and I'm just going to place them upside down on the floor so the curved part is sticking out, and then I'm going to gather them at the top. And I'm using a red zip tie, and I'm just going to zip tie them together at the top. Then once they're zip tied, I am going to take them and just kind of fan them out at the bottom so that way it looks like a Christmas tree. Then I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue and I'm going to place that at the top of the piece so that way it kind of holds it together for me while I am working with it. And then I'm going to take these 3 bells that came from Dollar Tree a few years ago. I think they were ornaments, but I honestly don't know. So I just had them lying around in my stash. So I'm going to tie some red twine to each one of them. And then I'm going to take all 3 of those bells and gather them up. And then I'm going to stagger them so that they're at different heights, and then tie together the twine at the top. And then I'm going to tie the twine in the middle of the candy cane Christmas tree. And then I'm going to use some more twine and I'm going to wrap that around the top there so that way you can't see everything that's gathered there at the top. I just use a little bit of hot glue to secure that twine, and then I'm going to use one of these wooden stars and I painted it, added a twine bow, and then on the back I cut a skewer down and then I hot glued it to the back of the star to make a little pick so that way I could set it down inside of my candy canes that are gathered up. And then I hot glued that star down to the top of the candy cane. And I love how this candy cane Christmas tree turned out. It's really pretty and super easy and inexpensive to make. It's perfect to put by a fireplace or on a tabletop for some Christmas decor. Thank you all so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up. More new Christmas DIYs coming your way soon, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye-bye.